Welcome to the channel. I'm James Salvatore, and next to me is the newly refreshed 2022 Land Rover Discovery P360 R-Dynamic HSE. I know, a little bit of a mouthful, but that means this is pretty much as good as it gets. So in today's video, I'm going to be going over the features of it, and then I'm going to drive it and share my thoughts on it with you. So let's get right into it, shall we? Refreshed for 2022, the Land Rover Discovery R-Dynamic sits at the top end of the Discovery lineup. It features 3 rows of seats and cutting-edge technology for on the road and off the road. Under the hood, you'll find a 3-liter turbocharged V6 producing 355 horsepower and 368 foot-pounds of torque, and it's good for 0 to 60 in 6.2 seconds. It has an 8-speed transmission, and the EPA estimates this will do 18 miles per gallon in the city and 24 on the highway, and it could tow up to 8,200 pounds. Up front, now you see we have fully adaptive LED headlamps, and the styling cues in the front end mostly resemble the Range Rover Sport, in my opinion. It's much more aggressive. I like that they have the black grille now and the gloss black lower front fascia. And in the rear, you can see they've definitely neatened things up a bit here. I love the use of the gloss black inlays and that the rear bumper is now flush with the body. It makes for a very modern, sleek look when you see it in person. And the interior uses nice materials throughout, and it has a nice, elegant, and sleek, modern design to it. I think Land Rover's done very well in improving their digital gauge cluster because they always looked nice, but they were a bit laggy in some models. This is definitely much more fluid and easier to use, and what's nice is you do get a few different layouts with this. You can have one dial, full map, display your media functions and driver's assistance. Overall, just a very nicely laid out gauge cluster. And this by far is the best infotainment system I've seen in a Land Rover product. The screen is nice and large, but I like that it doesn't dominate the entire center stack. Some companies like, Mercedes with the new S-Class and Tesla, depending on what your preference is, I don't really care for when the screen just dominates everything. I like that they've made it a large enough screen, but it's just not too overpowering. And the layout's nice. You can see aesthetically it's very pleasing. You can see the stock map software has been much improved. Previous models used to take a little bit rendering when you'd zoom in and out, but most importantly, you do have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto in this car. And going into the main page, there's too much to go through, but some of the highlights, definitely the camera system. This has the 3D camera system that is super useful, especially if you plan to off-road this. Just really easy to see around. I mean, just take a look at all these different angles you have. This is definitely one of the best 3D cameras in the business right now. And then if you go into off-roading mode, you could see your corners, but if you could also see what's directly in front of the bumper and around your tires, which extremely useful once again if you're going to be doing some off-roading. And then you have a towing camera as well. And in the second row, I have plenty of headroom, and I have some knee room, not a lot, but it's enough to be comfortable. And you also do get charging USB ports in the back, and you have quad zone climate control as well. And on the road, the first feeling that I get within the Discovery is a sense of like commanding the road. You're sat up high, as you would expect in an SUV, but some SUVs you feel like you sit down lower. This is definitely one of those SUVs where you feel like you're sitting up high. Visibility is excellent. You have pretty much very to little no blind spots in this, which is very impressive for an SUV. A lot of these newer SUVs from other brands and just in general have a lot of blind spots because they feel like you could rely on the assistance systems. But it's always nice when you don't have to do that. And as you go down the road, you just look down this very long hood, and it feels very well put together. Build quality in this, I have to say, overall is excellent. In previous years, there were some areas where you could feel Land Rover skipped out on a few corners, but their newer products are really nice. Everything feels solid from, like when you close a door to you know, panels. Nothing creaks and groans and squeaks. And you actually would be surprised at how many new cars actually squeak in the panels. You know, you could hear them as you hit bumps and whatnot. It feels very refined. As you go down the road, the cabin's very quiet. And when you hit bumps, you don't hear much of the impacts, which is definitely a good thing. And the air suspension is dialed in nicely. When you hit bumps or you go over waves and dips in the road, you get a little bit of that wafting, but you don't get any of the unnecessary body roll in the corners, which is a huge improvement, because in some Land Rover products in the past that I've driven in the past few years, I've noticed that. This feels very confident for the road, and that's nice because, you know, most of the time, most of you are going to be using these on the road, not off-road. But it's also nice to know how capable these vehicles are. And going back to a previous point on build quality, one of the little things I noticed is they do use real metal paddle shifters and real metal door handles. It's little things like that that make an interior feel more high quality. Almost 90% of the vehicles I review, whether it's BMW, Mercedes, Audi, for the most part, they all use plastic paddle shifters and they use plastic door handles. Like, touch points like that do matter, and I do appreciate the attention to detail there. All right, we're heading into town here, and we're on a milled surface and you really can't feel any of it. This suspension just does such a good job at soaking up the imperfections in the road. And as I come to a stop and the engine shuts off for the auto start stop, I am appreciating that the transitions are seamless. You don't feel it. In some cars, you still do feel an interruption. And it's nice that they paid close attention and refined that in this. And you get a 700 watt Meridian surround system, which is very good. I've enjoyed it a lot this whole time during this review. And it's funny, I have reviewed other cars where they have more powerful systems that have more speakers, but for some reason the way that they've placed the speakers and maybe the design and the software, it's just a really good match, and I was very impressed with the audio quality. The only obvious downside to this vehicle for me would be is if I had maybe a family of 6, or, you know, basically if I needed to carry more than 5 people around, I'd need to put that third row of seats up, and that would mean I wouldn't be able to fit anything in the rear because there's no trunk room when you have those seats up. So keep that in mind if you have a larger family and you plan on using the third row of seats almost all the time, that you're going to have nowhere to store anything. So just something to keep in mind. But if that doesn't matter to you, then hey, you know, there's really not many downsides to this that I'm seeing from my initial test. Another cool thing is on the heads-up display, you get a constant display of the vehicle's pitch as well as where the front wheels are. I think it's pretty neat. To sum up my thoughts here, I definitely do recommend the Discovery. I think at $70,000 that you are getting a lot for your money here. You're getting a great luxury experience between how refined it is in here, you know, with how quiet it is and how nice and soft and supple the air suspension is. And, you know, just the use of materials throughout the cabin, as I mentioned earlier. You're getting a very capable off-roading vehicle. You know, if you live in an area where you experience very harsh winters, or, you know, you live out in the middle of nowhere or something, this will get you pretty much wherever you have to go. And on top of it, you know, you can fit everybody comfortably. You could seat up to 7 people. So the only compromise you really have in this is that you don't have any trunk space if you need to be using that third row. But other than that, I haven't really found a fault with this. So I definitely recommend you get out there and you go try one. That wraps things up for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't done so yet, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell notification so you don't miss out on the next one. And before we go, I'd like to say a special thanks down to my friends at Land Rover at Darien, Connecticut for making this video possible. They're an awesome, helpful, friendly group of people to work with. So if you're in the market for a new Discovery or any Land Rover Jaguar products in general, be sure to check them out. I'm going to leave a link in the description below to their contact information. And with that said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next video.